Bob Iger made a $7.4 billion decision 90 days into becoming CEO of Disney. His own board called the price reckless. Wall Street downgraded the stock. The press said he was overpaying for a company a fraction of Disney's size, and on paper, they were right. Pixar had made 6 movies. That's it. No deep catalog, no franchise depth, no guarantee the run would continue. 12 years later, that one decision was responsible for tens of billions in shareholder value, the rebirth of Disney animation, and the strategic template Iger would use 4 more times to acquire Marvel, Lucasfilm, BAMTech, and Fox. Today I want to walk through how he actually made it. Not the version that ended up in the business school case studies. The version almost no first-time CEO has the discipline to execute. I'm Jake. This is the Operator's Playbook, where we go deep twice a week on the books and the decisions that change how operators actually think and build. 3 things today. The state of Disney when Iger took over, which is more dire than most retrospectives admit. The actual mechanics of the Pixar decision. And the operator lesson, which is hiding in plain sight in the timeline. Let's get into it. Most retrospectives describe Disney in 2005 as a company that was struggling. That language is too soft. Disney in 2005 was a company in structural decline. Walt Disney Animation Studios, the original engine of the entire empire, had not produced a hit since Tarzan in 1999. Treasure Planet had become a $74 million write-down. Brother Bear underperformed. Home on the Range was so badly received that the studio quietly shut down its 2D animation pipeline entirely. Meanwhile, Pixar, which was technically just a distribution partner, had released Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles. 6 films, 6 cultural events, 6 commercial blockbusters, and by 2005, Steve Jobs was done. The Pixar contract was up after their next film. Jobs had personally hated working with Michael Eisner, Iger's predecessor, and had publicly stated in 2004 that Pixar would never sign a new deal with Disney as long as Eisner was running it. So this was the position Iger walked into. A century-old animation brand whose own animation studio couldn't make a hit. A heavy reliance on Pixar for the entire animated film slate. A counterparty actively planning its exit. And a board that had just survived a public corporate war and was in no mood for bold moves. Most new CEOs in that situation do exactly what you'd expect. Listening tour, strategic review, hire McKinsey, reassure the board, spend the first 100 days signaling stability. Iger spent his first 10 days reading the situation honestly, and concluded that stability was actually the most dangerous option on the table. They tell it as a deal story. Smart CEO sees undervalued asset, makes a great trade, gets credit later. That's the version that ended up in business school case studies. It is not the version that actually happened. Iger's first real move as CEO wasn't pitching an acquisition. It was a phone call to Steve Jobs in which he proposed something completely unrelated. Putting ABC's television shows on iTunes. Apple had a video iPod about to launch. Disney had a wall of premium content sitting unused for digital. Iger told Jobs he thought there was a huge opportunity to do for television what Apple had done for music. The two of them put the deal together in 5 days. On October 12th, 11 days after Iger officially became CEO, Jobs and Iger walked on stage together at an Apple event and announced that 5 Disney shows, including Lost and Desperate Housewives, would be available on iTunes. That was the actual opening move. The Pixar conversation came later, and when the Pixar conversation did come, Iger called Jobs and said, quote, "I have a crazy idea. Can I come up and talk to you about it?" Jobs made him say it on the phone. Iger laid it out. Jobs' response, quote, "Well, it's not that crazy." That's when Iger went to his board. The board reaction was, predictably, not enthusiastic. The price tag was $7.4 billion in Disney stock. Disney's market cap at the time was around $50 billion. Iger was proposing to spend roughly 15% of the company on a studio whose entire revenue was a fraction of that. On a discounted cash flow basis, the deal was indefensible. Pixar had made 6 movies. There was no proven catalog. There was no franchise depth. There was a small team of brilliant creatives and one unrepeatable run. Iger's framing to the board was simple. He wasn't buying the catalog. He was buying John Lasseter, Ed Catmull, and the Pixar culture. The IP was secondary. Read that again because it's the entire decision. Iger paid $7.4 billion for a creative culture. The films were a side effect. What he was actually buying, the only thing he was actually buying, was a working creative engine that he could plug back into Disney Animation and let cross-pollinate. That distinction is the entire reason this deal worked, and it's the entire reason almost no other CEO in his position would have made it. The deal closed in May 2006. Lasseter and Catmull were given creative oversight of both Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios. The Disney Animation team, the same team whose recent films had bombed, was kept largely intact. 4 years later, Disney Animation released Tangled, then Wreck-It Ralph, then Frozen, which alone generated more than $1.2 billion at the box office. And that number is a fraction of what Frozen actually became. Once you add the merchandise, the theme park integrations, the licensing, the sequels, and the spin-offs, that one film became an economic engine measured in tens of billions. That's what Iger actually bought. Not movies. A system that produces billion-dollar outcomes, repeatedly. And here's the part most retrospectives miss entirely. The Pixar deal wasn't just a Pixar deal. It was the template. In 2009, Iger bought Marvel for $4 billion. Same logic. Buy the system, not just the product. He kept Kevin Feige in place and gave him operational independence. In 2012, Iger bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion. Same logic. He kept Kathleen Kennedy in place. In 2019, Iger closed the $71 billion acquisition of Fox's entertainment assets. Same logic, much larger scale, plus a streaming infrastructure acquisition along the way that became Disney+. 5 major acquisitions. 1 playbook. The playbook was set in his first 3 months. Here's what I think is actually worth taking from this. The first 90 days of any new operator role, whether you're a CEO, a new director, a new founder, a new team lead, is the only window where you have permission to make decisions that look insane to the people around you. Everyone is watching. Nobody trusts you yet. But everyone also assumes you're going to do something. That assumption is a finite resource. It expires. Most new leaders waste it. Listening tours, strategic reviews, stability theater. They show up, they take notes, they build consensus, and by the time they're ready to actually move, the political capital they walked in with is gone. Iger did the opposite. He used the window deliberately. He spent his first 10 days diagnosing the structural problem, not the surface problem, and made a single decision big enough to define the next decade. And the decision he made wasn't even about animation, technically. It was about culture. Disney had spent a decade trying to fix its creative output by reshuffling executives, hiring new directors, and cutting budgets. None of it worked. Cultures don't respond to management interventions. Cultures respond to other cultures. So Iger didn't try to fix Disney's broken culture. He replaced it. That's the move. Most operators try to improve broken systems. The best ones replace them entirely. And if the move you're considering is something your predecessor refused to make, that's data, not a warning. The constraints were theirs. They might not be yours. Iger wrote about this whole period in The Ride of a Lifetime, which we'll cover on the library in a few weeks. Read alongside this video. His book becomes a case study in how a single judgment call cascades through 15 years of strategy. Next week, we go inside another operator who quietly used his first years in the job to redefine what Apple actually was. In 2013, Tim Cook approved a strategy so unsexy that nobody bothered to write about it. 10 years later, that strategy generates $85 billion a year. Most analysts still don't credit Cook for making it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you next week.